Major political parties often run what are known as focus groups, paying research companies to find out what voters are thinking and feeling, and they use that to shape policies and messages to win elections. So we thought if the Prime Minister and government are listening to these focus groups, why don't we cut out the middleman and find out what these groups are saying? Joining us live now is the Director of Redbridge Group, Simon Welsh. Simon, thanks for your time. Let's talk about New South Wales. The state election is less than 6 months away. What are voters in New South Wales thinking?
Yeah, thanks, Gab. It's a fascinating time at the moment to be out doing groups. I feel like we're sort of watching tectonic plates move on a fast forward loop at the moment. So what we're seeing in New South Wales, our work over sort of the past week or fortnight there has really been defined by, again, excuse me, this teal independence story. The teal independents in those sort of northern suburbs up through to the northern beaches of New South Wales are really on fire. The support there for that vote shifting off the Liberal pole into those independents is like nowhere else. We're seeing a little bit of here in Victoria as well in some of those wealthier socioeconomic status seats. But in New South Wales, it's a different story. We're seeing it quantitatively and we're seeing it qualitatively at the moment. It's like, as I say, it's like watching tectonic plates moving in fast forward at the moment. People are really shifting their votes in a big way.
We saw that huge swing to independent candidates at the federal election. So these independent candidates are a threat for both major parties during the state election here in New South Wales?
True. Probably more so on the Liberal pole in New South Wales, mainly because that's the incumbent government there. And there sort of does seem to be this factor where it's a Liberal incumbent government that the teal factor seems to bite a little harder. And it's kind of interesting in New South Wales. So what we're seeing there is there is a sort of an aura of competency around the New South Wales government. So these voters aren't saying this government's hopeless, this government's incompetent. It's really about a values disconnect. So they're looking at this government and they're saying integrity issues, the Barilaro issue, those sorts of things, which also has a gender aspect to it for these voters. They're talking, there's a coldness around Dominic Perrottet for these voters, which has also got a bit of a you're just not Gladys factor for them as well. So there's these interesting sort of values-based sort of factors that are higher in order for these voters than, as I say, sort of just simple competency.
It's interesting, isn't it? It is going to be tough for the Libs to hold on to power. They've been in power for 11 years. Is that a disadvantage to them as well, because people are wanting a change, or is it because they're just not listening?
I think I'm always of the belief, having done groups now for a long time, you stay in government long enough, eventually you annoy enough people that, that your time comes. So I certainly think that's probably part of it, yeah.
Okay, what about Victoria's election? 46 days to go. Daniel Andrews appears to be ahead in the polls. It looks like he's going to win this one. This election seems to be fought on transport and infrastructure. Why are the Libs and Labor choosing those issues in their campaigns with the Victorian election coming up?
Well, there's certainly the issues that we see coming up in the focus groups, and no doubt, the Liberals and the Labor campaign are seeing the same thing. So health and infrastructure dominate down here in Victoria. I think it's going to be an interesting election. I don't think the result will reflect some of these overall sort of statewide polls that we're seeing. I think it's going to be a lot messier than that. I think there's going to be differences by geography, which reflect sort of underlying sort of socio-economic factors in certain parts of Melbourne, and experience of COVID and experience of lockdown. The experience of COVID was very, very different, for example, in the western suburbs of Melbourne than it was in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, where a lot of people could work from home. So these sorts of things, I think, are going to make it messy. But absolutely, health, infrastructure, is really at the core of it. The one thing that interestingly sort of seems to be a bit missing from both sides in the Victorian campaign is cost of living. Every time we put the dipstick in the oil, cost of living keeps coming up as people's number one sort of real concern, almost fear right now. And it's interesting that sort of both parties are sort of walking around that at the moment, which is not to say those other things aren't important. They are.
Yeah, we're all feeling the pinch, aren't we? Simon Welsh, thank you so much for your time.
Good on you. Thank you.